Hello, and welcome to Musical Moments with Ars Lyrica. My name is Kathleen Staten, and I am the Marketing and Events Associate. I also have a background in performance and in music education. I'm thrilled today to be bringing you a link between Baroque music and contemporary music. So, we're going to look at some ways today about how to write a song, and you'll learn some interesting connections like how does guitar tablature have something in common with notation in the Baroque period? And also, what do Taylor Swift and Shakespeare have in common? So let's get started with how to write a song. So, writing a song has many elements that have to be considered. What do you think some of them are? Well, I bet you thought of melody. It's really important to have a catchy melody. And when I say catchy, I mean something that is easy to remember. What makes something memorable? Well, often it's repetition. Think about how many times someone has to remind you to do something, like maybe it's clean your room or take your dishes to the sink. Or for us adults, did you remember that you have a meeting at 4 p.m. today? Or you're picking up your children after school? It takes repetition in order to get something stuck in your head. So, familiar harmony is the music that goes underneath, and that means chords or extra notes that our ears recognize as regular. Those things will make us feel comfortable and at ease while we sing our songs. But our focus today is on text, meter and rhythm, maybe rhyming scheme, and a good story. All of those elements are very important when you're writing a song. Meter and rhythm sound like something that you would only be dealing with in music, but in fact, it has a lot to do with text as well. Poetry and music are like sisters. Also, rhyming is really important in remembering things. Think about your favorite nursery rhymes like Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Or if you're trying to remember things for a test, if you can put things into a rhyme scheme, it's easier for your brain to remember them. So, what are some of your favorite songs? While you're thinking about your favorite songs, take a moment to consider what is the rhyme scheme? Do the words rhyme? And what's the rhythm like of the words? So if you say the words out loud, do they sound like poetry? Do they rhyme? Or is it more like rap music where it's a long speech pattern with a lot of words that maybe don't have a specific rhythm and beat to them like other songs? When we're talking about the rhythm of text, we're talking about the pattern of stresses and unstressed syllables. So, for example, the word syllable. One of the syllables is actually stronger than the rest. You'll hear the word syllable. So that's strong, weak, weak. And when you string together many words, each word has its own strong or weak beat. All spoken word has some kind of rhythm to it, but it's about the patterning of it that creates poetry and good song lyrics. When you write words in sentences, you will notice patterns forming because our ear naturally gravitates toward them. Did you know that depending on what country you're from and what your native language is, your sense of what rhythm feels natural to you may be different? For example, in Italian, there's a lot of strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, whereas in English, there are a lot of single syllable words. So that changes the overall feel of stressed and not stressed syllables in writing. In poetry, pre-measured patterns of stressed and unstressed syllables are called meters. So like in music, a meter would be the amount of notes and time that exists between each bar line. But in poetry or writing, it's about how many stressed and unstressed syllables are in each line. Meters are the pattern of feet within a sentence, and a foot is the combination of stressed and unstressed syllables. Feet are individual units of rhyme made up of patterns of syllables. And sentences and paragraphs, of course, have many, many feet. Now, why is this all important? It's important because in music and in speech, which we're uniting together in the concept of how to write a song, have to fit into some kind of pattern. So let's look quickly at just the type of feet that you tend to find in poetry. There is the lamb foot, which is like the word today, or the rhythm that they have spelled out for you is ba-ba, or say ta-da. So you have a short unstressed syllable and a longer stressed syllable. The trochee is the exact opposite of that. It's stressed and then unstressed, like Bubba, trochee, like the word itself. A spondy is stressed, stressed, so two syllables that have equal weight to them. Hip, hop. Anapest, unstressed, unstressed. Metaphor, so the stress in that word is on the final syllable. And the dactyl, which is stressed, unstressed, unstressed, like syllable. Now, what does that have to do with music? Here you can see the beginnings of rhythmic notation in the notes listed underneath the pictures. So if you have a hot dog, you may remember from the previous screen that that's a, what's your guess? Hot dog is like hip hop or like the spondy foot. Grape soda is a single stress with a stressed and an unstressed pairing. Apple pie, the reverse of grape soda. Maybe you can try your name and see what you think the stressed and unstressed syllables are. My name is Kathleen Staton. So that is strong week, strong week. Try yours. How do you think your name is in stressed and unstressed syllables? The reason this is important is because when we look at writing words to music that already exists, we have to copy the pattern of the notes and the text. One last look at poetry before we get to music because it relates so directly. Did you know that Shakespeare and Taylor Swift have something in common? Shakespeare wrote in what was called iambic pentameter. So if you know your prefixes, you know that penta means 5. So in this case, iambic pentameter means 5 feet that are in each line. So let's count them. The marks indicate weak, strong, weak, strong. So the strong is the slash, and you can read it with me if you like. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. So of course we probably wouldn't read that in that exact way or that tone if we were presenting it. But at the end of the day, Shakespeare had a rhythm to his meter. The same way that Taylor Swift does in Shake It Off. 'Cause the player's gonna play, 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 play. And the hater's gonna hate, 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 hate. Baby, I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake. I shake it off, I shake it off. So there you go. You now have a great trivia fact, which is that Shakespeare and Taylor Swift both write in iambic pentameter. So why does this matter? We're going to look at 2 great mistakes by one of the most brilliant composers of the Baroque time period, George Frederick Handel. And you may have heard of his piece, Messiah. And in this piece, there are a lot of solos, duets, and then choruses. I'd like you to take a second to read the text that begins with the word for. So read that out loud. The way I would read that text is, for unto us a child is born. So the important words are unto us, child born. That's a very natural rhythm that's in that same strong week pattern or foot that we saw in Taylor Swift and Shakespeare. So, but let's listen to how Handel sets this text. Did you hear that? For unto us a child is born. Would you ever speak that way? Probably not. Let's take a look at the other grammatical mishap. Why don't you read out loud the sentence on the next excerpt? That's a big last word there. And you have to decide where to put the stress. And the way you would probably read this is, the trumpet shall sound and the dead shall be raised incorruptible. So that one is in a feel of 3. Strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, strong. So let's listen to how Handel said it. Shall sound, and the dead shall be raised Incorruptible, says Handel. Now, in all fairness to this great musician, it is worth noting that he spoke three languages, and while he was native to the Italian tongue, English was his third language. So it sometimes came out that he didn't set the text the right way for the English language. So now that you know a little bit more about why text, meter, and music are linked, let's get started and write your own song. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is a very famous song that actually goes back at least to the classical and Baroque times. So this is an authentic song to be using today. And what we're going to look at is the pattern of strong and weak beats in each line. So let's count them together and say it out loud. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. So if we're figuring out how many beats that we're going to have to come up with text for, you'll hear strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. So that's 3 complete feet of the strong, weak pattern, and then 1 standalone beat. How I wonder what you are. Ah, that's the exact same pattern. 3 feet plus a standalone. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. So what you probably have figured out by now is that every line in this popular nursery rhyme has the same pattern, 3 feet plus 1 beat at the end. The other important thing to notice is the rhyme scheme. Each couplet or group of 2 lines rhymes, star and R, high and sky. Now, to throw in one more musical twist, there is a form called ABA, which means that something happens at the beginning, something new happens in the middle, and then there's a return back to what happens at the beginning. So in our project here, you're only going to have to come up with 4 original lines, and then you'll get to repeat the first 2. So how do you write your own song? Well, the first thing you're going to have to decide on is what is the theme for the story that you're going to tell in your song. Maybe you'd like to talk about cooking or going outside to play or how you're coping with this strange time that we find ourselves in. Whatever you decide to do, think about it as the title to a story. So come up with your title now. Once you've decided on a theme or a title for your story, then that's when you do the counting. So we've already done that for Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. But if you choose another song to write your words to, the next step would be counting out those patterns just like we did. Then you're going to follow the rhythm of the original lyrics and create your own. So what does that mean? Well, let me give you an example. So if I was going to sing a song about my favorite composer, I would decide that the title or the theme of my story would be Johann Sebastian Bach. And I might sing about some of my favorite pieces. So the story that I would like to tell is what some of those favorite pieces are and how I like to make music with them. So now that I have my title and my story, all I have to do is follow the rhythm of the original lyrics to then tell my story in poetry. I like singing J.S. Bach, all his songs they really rock. For at least that we all know some songs that go really slow. I like singing J.S. Bach, all his pieces really rock. And you can do this with absolutely any song, whether it's classical or something that you know from the radio. If you had joined us for this class live, Jen Young, the director of the Houston Show Choir, would have performed the song that you composed. But that's okay. You can still record it and send us your recording. We would love to see the song. Now, one of the reasons that changing the lyrics can be a lot of fun is that you create a memorable experience for people who are already familiar with this song. So for example, we have the Holderness family who has created a parody of our current situation to go with several pop songs, and then also a remake of Do Re Mi from The Sound of Music for COVID-19. You can check these out on your own. How else do Baroque songs and modern songs link together? The answer is in how they're notated. We're going to look at the difference between figured bass and guitar tablature. If you're not sure what those are, we have resources available in the same folder as this presentation. So we have three examples here. On the left, you'll see what might look like a familiar version of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Above the notes that are written are where to place your fingers, and that's called tablature. It's like a shorthand or a very brief way to notate the picture of your hand in the formation that it needs to be to play the chords. On the bottom is also another kind of tablature where it is written out over the course melodically so that you know how to play the melody in your fingers. In the center is what's called figured bass. Figured bass was the shorthand notation during the Baroque time when Bach and Handel were writing music. They didn't actually write out the music that went underneath it, they simply gave you that detail of a note with some numbers underneath it. And what those numbers indicated was what notes to play on top of the few that they gave you. So in Baroque music, the most important lines were the melody or the song that you sang, and then the bass line. Everything else that went in the middle was kind of up to you, very much like playing the guitar. So if you go to lead sheets and find a song for your favorite song, then you would have the guitar chords, but how you played them would be up to you. How many strums? How fast do you strum? Where do you put your fingers on the neck? Do you use a capo? All of those kinds of things that you get to determine as a performer. And on the right there is a close-up of that tablature. So numbers, numbers everywhere. Who knew that this was also a math lesson? Let's look at these two a little bit closer. On the left-hand side, you might see that in the bass clef, that first note there is a C. So if we were singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star starting on a C, like is notated on the right-hand side, then your left hand would know to play a C chord. And that's actually what those numbers tell you underneath. 8 and 5 mean that you're playing the note that's eight notes above that C, and then one that's 5 notes above that C. And it's implied or assumed that you would know to fill in the third. So in that case, you would be playing a C chord, C, E, and G. If you have a keyboard, try counting above that C for yourself. 8 notes above the C will give you the octave. The fifth will be G, and then again, the implied 3 is an E. Going on to the second bar, you'll see that there's an F in the bass clef with a 3 above it. So that's that third we were talking about as implied, but that again will tell you that that's an F chord or a chord based on F. Going to the next note, C with a 5 over it, those 5s and 3s mean that the chord is in root position. What does that mean to you? Well, it means that you can build a simple triad on that bass note, which means play the bass note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note, play, and that's a triad. If you compare figure 5 with Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on the right, you'll notice that the chords match up. C for 4 beats, F for 2 beats, and then C for 2 beats. So the way that the Baroque time period gave you freedom was that you were allowed to improvise based on these foundational chords. Now you heard me say the word improvise, which also ties in jazz, which operates on this same chordal structure. Thank you so much for joining us for songwriting and just a little bit of a look into the bridge between Baroque and contemporary songs. For more questions, you can contact me directly at kstaten@arslyricahhouston.org or visit our website and our virtual programming. We offer educational classes every week, which we'll post on YouTube, and you can find out more about concert opportunities and masterclasses.